All right, Kenman here, and today I am continuing with my custom die project number 37. This is 36. We just actually were working on it. What do you think about that fade? Kind of turned out pretty good. But we are now on 37 also. I dipped this in yellow. This is the first micarta test. So it didn't change it that much. It was already kind of brown. It gave it this more uniform yellowy brown kind of a color. But I want to do some sanding tests with this. And so one of the things I think would be a good idea is for sanding this off is I'm going to do one more quick color layer. And we're going to see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and drop these in this blue quick. Boom. But not very long. I'm going to go ahead and get these out of our life. Just keep that safe. Got the nice Vision FG here. I did this one in red way back in the day. You can check it out right there. But this is just a little quick dip with these, and then we're going to cut to me doing some sanding work on them after they have dried. And we're kind of just experimenting with this micarta, see what we can get to happen out of it. But it soaks it up so fast. See this? Look at that. Ugh. All right, turn off my dye. And then boom. So I noticed in the last video, if you want to watch that part 2 of 36 and 7, you can check that one out right there. But I noticed that the texture of the micarta, it was almost like the dye was sitting on the surface, and then I was able to kind of rub it off. It's strange. So what I just did was a very short dip. You can kind of see that it darkened up. But I'm doing a quick rinse here because of the way it was rinsing before. I wanted to make sure. Okay, so I'm going to go in one more time and give it just a little bit more of this blue color over the top. But like I said, my goal is I'm going to do some sand work. So if this blue is just on the top, it hasn't had a chance to soak in underneath the yellow that we did. And then the brown is underneath that. Or it's all kind of mixing together and it won't work at all. But I'm kind of hoping for a slight layering like that. Then when I sand this off, I can leave some high, some low, and get a little bit of gradient and kind of mess around with some weathering techniques. Get a little bit of all the colors in there. What's everyone think about that? Been doing a lot of experimenting and stuff with the channel lately, or with the dye project actually. It's interesting. I've been doing a lot of solid colors, so why not start getting into trying something different, right? Okay, so I'm going to do that wipe down quick here. And we are now looking a little bit darker, more of a green brown almost, the way that blue mixed with it. And when these are wet, it also, that wet micarta looks a lot darker than it does when it's dry. Okay, I got these in a towel. I'm going to move this water up and out of the way and kind of dry these off a little bit. I'm not going to be able to completely dry them, but I want to just at least kind of pat them dry a little bit. Maybe I need to use a black one so I'm not getting any white lint inside the cracks and crevices of these chunks of micarta. All right, so here we are. Definitely made it a darker, uniform kind of a color, but I'm hoping it's kind of layered and I can get underneath there with some sandpaper and come up with some results. So that is all we're going to do for this die for this part right here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut now to me at the table with these dry. We'll get to sanding them and continue. Okay, we are at the shop table here. We have the Lieb dyed scales. I am going to do a little sanding work and we're going to see what kind of happens. I got some 400 grit we're going to start with here. I have not done this before, but I just want to mess around with a little bit of a weathering kind of a look and we're going to see what happens. I'm going to zoom out, not in, try not to bump the table. Just going to hit this edge a little bit. Problem with this, I think, is it's going to get powdery. I'm almost going to have to wash it and then dry it, because when it gets wet, it definitely looks a little different. It like darkens it up, and so then you got to kind of let it dry. And this, I noticed that when I did the dye, it took a little bit longer for it to dry off than like a G10. So I'm just kind of hitting it in random spots, kind of catching corners so that the dye is a little uneven. I don't know how far and well it soaks into my micarta, but I did a couple of different dye colors. Did that yellow and then some blue. Left us with this kind of green finish. And I don't really know how the sanding, especially with this grit, exactly will go, because I've never done this before. So I'm just kind of experimenting, as all of the dye project has been. But if you've ever weathered anything before, you really want to be just alert and aware of what you're doing as far as consistency. Weathering isn't always consistent, and if you just kind of keep doing the exact same thing in the exact same spot, it's just going to look like a single whatever. You want to think about like, oh, it got taken in and out of the pocket over and over again. And then one time, you know, there was that, you know, where you caught it against a table or something, and then there's a time where you were prying something and it did some random stuff like that. And I don't know how well any of these are even going to stick out, especially with this sandpaper being as not abrasive as it, you know, I could get it much more stronger paper, but I'm going to basically start off like this and kind of see where it goes. That's the nice thing, is you can always kind of continue to sand it down, make it smooth, and then we can go back and add dye again. We just want to make it all solid color. The spots that kind of changed, we're going to be able to go back and dye again if necessary. But I just thought this would be kind of a fun experiment. Kind of play around with a little bit. I'm going to go right across the middle where there'd be a big wear line. I'm really just trying to catch these extra corners here. Just kind of give a little bit of variety. I'm not noticing it wearing off. I might end up getting a heavier grit. I'm going back and doing it again. But the nice thing about going light and mild is it's not too much. It doesn't go too far, and then you don't have to worry about getting too crazy too fast. I do have another, what is this? 320, a little bit more abrasive, but not much. Hit some of these other spots a little bit harder with the 320 here, just to see. And basically what I'm going to do here, this is just a couple minute experiment I'm adding on to the video, and I'm only going to do one, and then I'm going to wash it, let it dry, and we'll take a look. And if I like what's happening, then we can do the other one, and if it's not enough, we can keep going. Does that make sense? Okay. Nice uniform, even line across the top at the end here. All right. Well, I don't know how much any of that is going to show up. It's definitely chalky, so some of the color is still on. See, you can see it on my hand. It's like green and stuff. So like when I wash this, it's definitely going to change a little bit more than it is right now. I think the sanded areas have some chalky dust on them. I'm gonna go over those holes one time, like they got worn down. And again, this might not be enough, and I might have just wasted 5 minutes, and I need to go back with something stronger. But that's what we're learning. All right. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go wash this off camera here, and then we'll cut back to looking at it dry and clean, and we'll see what we've done and where we want to go from there. Sound good? All right, you can kind of see very subtle difference. All right, and cut. Okay, so on camera, it's pretty subtle. So this is the one I did not touch, and this is the one that I've sanded. So you can tell it's a little bit lighter all the way around, and it's lighter along the edges, kind of here and up in here, and there's some slight lighter areas right there. So it sort of worked. I do like the way this looks. I think I'm gonna go darker. I think the best thing is because this light kind of color, this tan kind of original color that's coming through there, will look better popping off of a darker color. Let me see, like, so here's my Bugatti. It was basically this. So you can see I've got a darker kind of a green going, but it was almost exactly this. Now that I've done the sanding, it kind of starts bringing it back to that. But it shows that basically the original dye I did wasn't dark enough. So I'm going to send this back in some blue or some green, get it really, really, really dark, and then go back and start hitting it so I can get these lighter areas to pop and contrast more. That's where we're at, and next clip will be the next step. All right, here we are going back in some green dye here, darken these up some more before we do some more weathering to them. See how this goes. Okay, let's take them out and see what we've done. They look a lot darker. Yeah, we'll go with that for now, I think. All right, I'm going to dry these off and we'll get them back to the table for some more sanding.